The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Greetings, Hotep, and welcome once again to another live broadcast of I Speaks, Building a New Legacy here with the Crew podcast on the first and third Thursdays of every month, at least for 2025, tr- at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Atlantic. The intention is for us to talk about and to still be able to have some engaging vibrations around things that are happening in the Caribbean, in Africa, in throughout the Americas, Central, 48 contiguous, North, and South. And we'd like to also make sure that we're speaking of things from a context of being global and at the same time speaking of revolution, not just in thought, not just in theory, but in praxis. And I have the joy and privilege of having entities we're going to cover tonight. I'd like to take a moment of reflection for those that have recently begun their ancestral transition journey into the realms of the Amenta, into the heavens, including my own matriarch, Queen, great grandmother, Ali Tomas Merchant Baker Davis. May she continue to rise in power. And I also extend that to others that are preparing themselves for celebrations of life, for family members, friends, close ones. And again, we always send out in these times our well wishes and positive energy beyond the resilience that has been exhibited by our brothers and sisters devastated by Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica, in Cuba, in República Dominicana, and parts of the Bahamas. So I think we may have to navigate a little bit differently when we start to speak about what are how does all of this relate to something that we have been having here on this podcast, on these various broadcasts. How do we get children involved? How do we get the center of some of these conversations? And then also, how do we begin to speak of power in the midst of things? To explain some of the background sound, I'm going to ask my guests to join us in the platform, and that is none other than Brother Obi Egbuna. So as soon as I can get that in place, I want to make sure that okay, I'm not sure why I cannot get you up on the board, but I would like for my engineer in the ethers to please welcome our guest who has joined us. Thank you very much, Obi Egbuna. Second, greetings, Brother Obi. Thank you so much at such a short notification for joining us here on I Speaks on the Crew Podcast. How are you this evening?
I'm fine. It's always an honor to be in your company. And let me begin by just extending heartfelt condolences to you on the transition of your mom.
Thank you very much. I really give thanks for that. She keeps me. She's keeping me. She's keeping me as she always has. So I'm grateful. I'm really excited because there were so many things that you keep doing. I think just you spend a lot of time with children. You spend a lot of time teaching children in a very pragmatic, kinesthetic way. You keep them always supporting academic excellence so that they can know themselves, really heal themselves, really love themselves, really respect themselves as much as possible. And even those that are challenged by the world as it is, you still are able to embrace them and strengthen their ability to truly be the spark of any revolution, the spark of change. So I'd like for you, one of the It's not that I want you to talk about a number of things, but I'd like us to start with the activity that took place at Howard University recently.
Yes, on Sunday night, the Mass Emphasis Children's History and Theater Company, in conjunction with the Center for Farafina Khan, which is a West African dance company, and a steel pan group.
Beautiful.
The center, wow, oh my lord! And let me, I gotta look this up.
Very good. Take your time, look it up, because that's what we're talking about. We would like to make sure to
And
get firsthand information. Yes.
it's escaping me. I sincerely apologize.
Okay. Well, no, no apologies required. One, you're a king man. You a papa, and I see that our beloved is giving us some background sound, so that this way,
Almost, most definitely.
so that that way we can keep things alive and authentic here in this broadcast, and we're very grateful for that. Right, a really powerful young royal. We're very grateful. I know that there was a lot of conversation of having this connection with the wider community that provides various forms of African centric education.
The Cultural Academy for Excellence Cafe,
Okay, the
and
Cultural Academy of
this
Excellence.
is an incredible children's steel pan ensemble
Beautiful.
like you have never seen.
Okay, you're
So,
speaking to somebody from the Caribbean. Hold back, hold back.
oh, exactly. No, but I'm saying just in terms of to see these children.
Hmm.
Now we know the quality of steel pan music you're accustomed to and you demand,
Right.
but to see
Excellent. Excellent.
teenagers,
Right.
and so we did a children's an African children's tribute to the fallen Pan African giant and icon Kwame Ture on his transition weekend at the invitation of the Kwame Ture Society, which is in its 25th year at Howard University. So these are some students. Most of them are seniors, and they invited us, and they had a conference on sovereignty, and we had the honor and privilege of closing it out. And whenever we perform publicly, for the purpose of showing the role of children's institutions and vehicles in the decolonization process, we never want to perform alone. So what happened the other day is Farafina Khan, whose drumming techniques are Guinea inspired. So taking into consideration that Kwame spent the last 31 years of his life living in Conakry, Guinea, that was very special.
Excellent.
Then you have Steel Pan Children's Group, understanding Kwame's birthplace is Trinidad, June 29th, 1941. So they did 6 songs. And then we did, which is becoming one of our staple poems, We All Love Our Mother. And the children of the Mass Emphasis Children's History and Theater Company, we performed it in English, Spanish, Igbo, Kiswahili, and Trigenya,
Wow.
and we had some children from the Eritrean Community Center in DC, which is the social outlet of the EPLF, the government of Eritrea. We had 4 children come and they recited in their language. So we recited our poem in 5 languages. So that's what people at Howard University on Kwame Ture's transition weekend got the opportunity to see.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's what I'm speaking to, that you can have that type of an integration of culture, education, heritage, preservation, and then doing it with the layer of excellence with young people, teenagers, those that are still navigating who they are, strengthening, of course, strengthening their identity. And that's what we're navigating. How do we restore ancestral, sacred traditions, asked in a form
Mhm.
that's practical? Like, how do we
Yes.
keep doing that? And mass emphasis. Tell us a little bit about the history and the longevity of mass
It's 15 years old now, and it's inspired by the pioneers of the revolution in Burkina Faso during the time of Thomas Sankara, the Youth Pioneer Institute during the time of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and the Convention People's Party, and La Colmanita in Cuba, which is the children's vehicle of the Cuban Revolution. one of them.
Beautiful. Right.
And what happened is it ended up, it has three components to it. You have the Mass Emphasis Children's History and Theater Company, which enables us to perform. We have something called the Mass Emphasis Positive Action and Creativity Youth Brigade. What we also showed that day is 4 years ago, we had a 10 and 13-year-old, two siblings. Um, they did a Kwame Ture mixtape, and it
Um,
was our effort to complement the Black Power mixtape. And they ended up using Kwame's speeches, and they created a mixtape using a harmonious blend of jazz, reggae, hip hop, and blues to complement Brother Kwame speaking in different places on different platforms. So we showed that for about 15 minutes. We also showed another, which has become probably our most popular offering. We have a poem called The Language Poem, and the video has taken on a life of its own. It shows children at the Thomas Sankara Center in Burkina Faso doing our poem,
beautiful.
children with the African Pride Club in South Carolina doing our poem, children with the United African Diaspora in Calgary, Alberta, Canada doing our poem. So we showed that. And a few years ago, we did a video around when the 50th anniversary of the passing of Osagie for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, so that would have been 3 years ago. We did a video reciting Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois in Osagie for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah tribute poem Ghana Calls. So that's what the audience got the opportunity. So they got a chance to see some of our video work, and then they got the opportunity to see the children live. So we have those three components working in unison together. And through that, we also have done some art shows. We have some children who can draw, and we have our children have done an art show to the Henry Reed Medical Brigade, Cuban doctors. They've done an art show to the recently late fallen warrior Asada Olubala Shakur, and they're about to start next week. They're doing an artistic tribute to Malcolm X, Patrice Lumumba,
Mm-hmm.
France Fanon, Medgar Evers, and Felix Mume out of the Cameroon, who all turned 100 this year. And we'll be collaborating with Casa del Cultura, which is the artistic children's arm in Cuba. So we're
Right.
supposed to be working on that together. So that's just what we've been up to in the last couple of months.
Right. Well, I'm really excited about all of the different ways that you've been able to get these young people involved, and I'm looking forward to seeing. And I love that you have it so it's global, it's regional, yes, it's national, yes, but you've made it international and really just far-reaching. And I'm sure that once more young people and persons that are into the creative arts see more of the work that's being done by Mass Emphasis on all the different layers and iterations, they'll be more involved in the educational piece because by the those regular, I'll just call them, freedom Saturday school type activities, that's where they get the content, they get the knowledge, they get
Oh, and and we also have a partnership with Theater of the Oppressed right there in the Virgin Islands. Shout out to my sister Saida
right,
Carter.
right, right.
Yes,
And that's a powerful
who who we thank you for introducing us to when we had the honor of doing the opening address for the Caribbean Study Body of Saida's caliber, and we started working together immediately, and we're going to be collaborating for sure moving forward.
right. And they are doing a variety of pieces, especially like this. It seems like either we're waiting to get things done or there's so much happening. And especially like hair, it's on the eve of the holiday season. And this is when St. Croix particularly has its various cultural festivals around the Christmas holiday.
Right.
And it, it's just so much between pageantry and concerts and more pageantry and concerts, and of course parades. The Virgin Islands Department of Tourism is definitely going to have significant features, and inside of that, there's always a nuance that is grounded in the culture, the heritage, the traditions of this space, I St. Croix, but the wider Caribbean, because we have so many people from so many places. So it becomes an authentic next layer of United Nations that come together through the creatives. And so I'm looking forward. If we're hoping in the future that we would have Mass Emphasis actually be participatory in some of the
Oh,
festival activities that happen around this time of year, and if not fit for the St. Croix Festival, There's St. John Festival, May, June, July, and then there's always April, May for the Virgin Islands Carnival festivals that happen inside of
It's an honor to even be considered. Thank you.
right. So it's I mean, you're doing some really great work, and I've had a chance to at least see a lot of the different excerpts and recordings, and that's why it was important to us to be able to hear directly from you. I mean, I know some of the viewers and listeners are like, well, where's the music, where's the video? So if anything, we can just post some of the links to things that are
We will definitely send you a compilation of things that we've done, so
okay.
we can share it with the space. And ironically, the last time we were on this platform, you showcased our play in Kiswahili
Correct.
called the Kiswahili Explosion, a whole play in Kiswahili with English subtitles.
Okay.
So yeah, so any opportunity that we have to expand people's efforts, we can. And for us, it's not only the opportunity to work with children, but to collaborate with other people who understand the immeasurable value of working with children in their respective areas. So
Right.
any platform that gives people a chance to learn our work, absorb our work, appreciate our work, and inspire our work, that's a very humbling process.
Yeah. Well, we're very excited to be able to do certain things. And a lot of times we do not get the joint privilege of doing the things we think that should be done, but we're working in that direction. And I think that
Hmm.
that's part of our, that's part of our, that's definitely part of our MO right now is that we're
Yes.
working towards being able, how do we continue to do these types of activities, do these kinds of programs, engage and again have them properly supported because that's one of the things that we've always had an issue with is having
May I please share like a historical anecdote that
let's do that.
in relationship to Kwame?
Of course.
In 1995, um, I picked Kwame up from the airport in D.C. He was speaking at the University of Maryland College Park for the last time, and University of Maryland Baltimore County for the last time. And this is before he realized that he had contracted prostate cancer. So we're playing in the car a tape. This is how long ago it was. It was a cassette, and it was Santana doing an homage to Olatunji from the 1964 Drums of Passion album.
Mhm.
And Kwame's like in the back seat, who's that trying to do Olatunji's song? And I said Santana. So he goes on, he says, oh, you got to return to the source. Like Cabral teaches us, that's Olatunji. And I started laughing. He said, would you disagree? I said I had both tapes on the dresser, but wanted to be on time to get you. So I left the other one. So I actually have that tape. One of my hobbies is I collect music.
Mhm.
So he says, oh yeah, because gotta tell you, young blood, um, the what we're trying to do in the political arena, the artists are ahead of us, light years, and
Absolutely.
they're doing it. And we're trying to catch up with them. So anytime we have an opportunity to recognize their efforts, we must. And I said, I agree with you. So we keep driving for like 10 minutes later. So 10 minutes later, he smacks me real hard on my shoulder. And I said, why you hit me on my shoulder? He said, oh, I have to humble myself. I'm sitting here telling you this. Your father was light years ahead of us.
Mhm.
He was doing that when we were babies and struggled.
That's right.
So then he says, so when you gonna get serious? It's in your blood. When are you gonna pick that up? And at the time, I'm 25 years old. And so I'm not, and so I'm in my fifth year of frontline service. That's the last thing on my mind is using art and culture and
Right.
writing
Mhm.
and playwriting and screenwriting to elevate our, let alone children.
Exactly.
So every opportunity that we get to do something in this space, because mass emphasis has been around for 15 years now. I've written 33 plays, of which at least 29 have been performed. And our work has been performed not only in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, as the young people say, the DMV. Our work has been done in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Our work has been done in Burkina Faso, and our work has been done in Haiti.
Mhm.
So to know that Kwame Ture indirectly, his challenge, his loving challenge, ends up resulting in a vehicle of this sort. Anytime we and one of our and the play we've done the most is a play called Same Neighborhood, Different Perspectives, a conversation between General Colin Powell and Kwame Ture. We actually have two versions of it, our initial version, and then we wrote a version after we went through some training and got a better nuance of how to utilize theater and make it actually theatrical.
That,
So just knowing his role in this process, I reflect on it often, and all I can do is smile. So I wanted to share that with the audience. I hope that was fitting.
yeah, I think that's quite fitting. I mean, we're still in the month of November, so there's a lot of observances honoring Baba Kwame Ture
Mhm.
and his legacy, and also looking into the fullness of how do we take all of that we learned from him, his words, his that whole tenor to how he engaged in revolutionary struggle and bring it to the
Yes,
forefront. What is
exactly.
it we pull from, you've mentioned some powerhouses. When you're mentioning Thomas Sankara, we can, now clearly speak of Ibrahim Traore in 2025 and others. When we
And to know that we are working with a children's center that a 25, 26-year-old named M. Richardson launched off the ground that has been so successful and so received in Burkina Faso, but because of the Sahel Alliance, earlier this year, they opened their second center in Niger. So to know that we have a partnership with them, to know we have a partnership with Theater of the Oppressed in the Virgin Islands, to know we have a partnership, we're developing a partnership with Casa del Cultura and La Colmanita in Cuba, to know that
right,
our work is, and we did a play a few years ago called Y'all Understand What I'm Saying, and it was a tribute to Paul Robeson. And we used one of our poems as the backdrop for the play. The poem was performed in 14 languages.
that sounds
Mende
about
and Sarah,
like Robeson, though.
right, exactly. So a young sister did it in Norwegian. Two of my students did it in Portuguese, Spanish. One of my students, Zaire Mohammed, did it in Mandarin.
Mm,
And Mende in Sierra Leone,
mm,
Akan in Ghana, Shona in Zimbabwe. And just to see that we have hands on interaction with children in all these different places who are part of vehicles. So when you think about the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare and Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah talking about the All African Committee for Political Coordination, and to see that you have these children's vehicles that are so difficult to maintain once you establish them, as you know as an organizer, and to see that we have these functional relationships and we're collaborating every opportunity we get. No
mm.
competition, collaboration. So it has that United Front character, it has that revolutionary Pan African character, everything we could ever want it to be if we were putting it down on paper, if we were having theoretical discussions about it.
That one. And not just conferences. I do remember that conversation as well, that we're doing something that extends beyond conferences or even congresses or
Yeah,
workshops, seminars.
right,
The
right.
intention, not that those things are not functional, they have a place. However, as we're moving, I should say, in addition to, as we move beyond 2025 and go into
Yes.
spaces where we can have more pragmatic,
And Dr. Chen, I feel like I'm cheating.
great.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm starting to feel like I'm cheating. And what I mean by that is when I'm in those spaces, and you know our favorite part of those spaces, well, what we need to do. And when you know that you're doing it every day and you're reaching people all over, and the response is what it is, but there are people saying we need to do that.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm cheating. I feel like we have this unbelievable advantage and just having an opportunity to expand on it all the time because we're not satisfied. Every time we make a breakthrough, we're looking for the next breakthrough.
Correct.
Always working, always probing, always searching. So, I love it. That's one thing. I love your ability to move. You and Mukasa Dada, in terms of people who I work with directly, your ability to move around. And so, when you tell me how you move around and you tell me about some of the exchanges, because I'm stationary these days for now, and but to know that from sitting right here in Hyattsville, Maryland, every time we make a contribution, we're connecting with folks a little bit of everywhere, taking advantage of being in this Washington D.C. space too. Never
Right.
taking that for granted, right? So it's
As long as you're
yeah,
safe and you're protected, we're grateful because that's usually the concern that persons have, especially those of us that do like many escapes from the 48 contiguous and then have to find ourselves escaping from the global Americanisms and then trying to find some type of solace and sanctuary so that we
yeah,
can actually do what we do
exactly.
without any hindrances or any interference. So I gotta
True.
think that that's the part. And
And
I'm
one more thing, thanks to our conversation and thanks to our conversations with you, one more thing that we've gotten into this year that has really taken off. Um, we've been dealing with the food insecurity dynamic. For
Mhm.
many who may not know, on this platform, in Washington, D.C., at this moment, 1 out of 5 children go to bed without food. In Washington, D.C. Do I need to say that again? One
I think
out of five children go to bed without food. So, 4 times this year already, we've gone into communities because we have our Saturday classes. That's the third part of Mass Emphasis. The Mass Emphasis Children's History, Education, and Navigational Institute. So, it's just a history class, fancy name for a history class. So, we go in, we do the class virtually, but we go into what are considered the challenge communities once a month, and we teach a class, but we provide that community food. And this is not nonprofit. This is grassroots,
Mhm.
inspired by people who do this work already. So there's church support, there's family support, some of the children, the family, the parents of the children who we teach. And we feed these children, but we teach them too. So we've had 4 successful programs under our belt. And we have a new component that we're willing to explore. We, for those who are not as traveled like you, Dr. Chen, that may not know the DC metropolitan area,
Right.
right outside of DC is a place called Prince George's County. And in Prince George's County, there are 2 communities in particular, Brandywine, Maryland, and Upper Marlboro. That is the agricultural belt of the state of Maryland. And you have acres of land owned and controlled by African people.
Mhm.
And so we've been meeting with them. So we're talking about this summer launching a project where we take children out of the most challenged communities, teach them how to build bat houses. Because for those of you who know agriculture,
That's right.
bats eat a
That water.
thousand a thousand mosquitoes an hour. So you protect the fertilizers. They're going to learn how to use tractors, the 3 type of tractors that you mostly use in the agricultural space. So we're talking about collaborating with projects in the different agricultural based HBCUs, but we want to connect with the agricultural department at UVI, where you are, because we
Mhm.
know they're doing some children's work. We're looking at children in Venezuela, children in the Sahel region, children in the SADC region of Africa, children in Guinea Bissau. And we want to have, by the end of around this time next year, the first All African Children's Agro Expo in
Wow.
honor of Amilcar Cabral and George Washington Carver. So that came out of our efforts just going into the community, feeding the babies, feeding their minds and their bodies simultaneously. So, so even though we're not at these conferences and assemblings
Actually, but you
of
are
major
though.
importance,
But actually, see, because that's what I'm saying. Like the reason that we're doing these types of interactions and discourse is so that because there's a. I'll give a perfect example. There's getting ready to be an international Black Women's March in Brazil, and started this weekend. And around the time where the United Nations designated November 25th is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And that
right?
again has a tie to not only an international space, but linked to some the assassination murders of the Mirabel sisters in Cuba, you know,
Ooh.
20th century. So there's like a whole connection of that that's being highlighted, and then the connection to what's happening with the the African descendants, ascendants, more correct.
Mm.
Let me make sure I correct myself. We tend to say Afro descendants because we keep letting colonizers define terms, but it should be
Mm.
proactive in that we're speaking of African ascendants because we're rising, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's kind of what's taking place in Brazil, and it's bringing very progressive sisters from around the globe. And
Are you going?
I was invited, but because of my recent shift, I'm not going to be able to attend. You know, because if I went, I could only stay for like a day. Right now, I
And
don't like
you're in contact with the organizers, being the incredible
absolutely.
networker that you are. Okay, so let me just you and Dr. Chen is so humble. Don't let her fool you guys. For the last 2 years, Dr. Chen has been one of the main coordinators of a campaign called the Asada Shakur Cuba Defense Campaign, which was a campaign set up to get Asada Shakur off the terrorist list, to get the $2 million bounty lifted on her head, and to get Cuba off the list of countries U.S. imperialism accuses of state-sponsored terrorism. Y'all know how courageous that was? Because they were people in these Cuban solidarity circles that felt it was not necessary or wise strategically to merge Asada's issue with the issue of dealing with Cuba and the relationship with the state-sponsored terrorism. So we were defiant with love, defiant with humility,
Mhm.
and we ended up also incorporating a project within the campaign in honor of Asada Shakur and Pauline Lumumba, which is working with Cuban doctors on the African continent. So that's some of the things that Dr. Chen is involved in. But one of the ways we've pivoted from the campaign, we want women, all African women and other women in solidarity with the African cause all over the world, to demand that former US President Barack Obama apologizes to the African world
Right.
for adding another $1 million to the bounty on Assata Shakur. It was 1 million. He added another $1 million to it.
Mhm.
And the Congressional Black Caucus apologized to our community worldwide
Good.
for supporting the extradition attempts on Sister Asada.
Mhm.
Because even though she was safe and sound in Cuba, many people have no idea of the insidious attempts to try to
Mhm.
extract her against her will.
That's right.
So that's something that we definitely. So we have an album coming out in honor of Patrice Pauline Lumumba and Assata Shakur, but to highlight Cuba's work, medical work on the African continent. So that album is supposed to be ready around March. So for all you artists out there that understand the two aspects of our music, of resistance, music with a message and music with a cause,
Right.
we would love you to be involved in that.
Right. Because there's some artists that
And out the
learn
children of mass emphasis,
to I think that what you're doing, like I said, how we've
we've
started,
collaborated before. Yes,
great, great. I'm looking forward. I'm
yeah.
looking forward. I
And
think that's
and
going
our children and the children of mass emphasis, guess what they did? Remember, Dr. Chen emceed the press conference. They put a call out to African children all over the world
to sure
that
do.
before July 26th next year, we should have an all Africans children's collage of images of Cuba's medical brigade at work all over the world. And
Yeah.
it'd be the first all African children's collage at that point. And the first thing that we were able to do, we were able to give support to the son of Mukasa Dada, the Pan African and Black Power icon. His son, Mukasa Ebeku Dada, my play nephew, who's a graduate of the Latin American School of Medicine in Cuba, who practices in Savannah, Georgia, in one of the poorest rural areas in Georgia. He went to Guinea-Bissau for the month of August and worked hands-on with Cuban doctors on the ground in Guinea-Bissau in a community that, based on electrical outages,
Mhm.
have to shut down electricity at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So for the rest of the time, he had to treat these people, and he told me he worked 18-hour days.
That's right.
And they started a group called the International Medical Society, which consists of Cuban graduates from Cuba's medical school who are going to go to nations all over the world and work with their doctors on the ground. And we know they have 4,000 doctors on the African continent. And this is important because as Dr. Chen has been to Ghana at least 3 times in the last 4 years, um, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was the first world leader to recognize the victory of the revolution. So we have a brother in Ghana right now that's negotiating to have the Cuban Henry Reed Medical Brigade have a sit down with those who relocated to Ghana around Dr. King's birthday with some Ghanaian students who graduated from the Latin American School of Medicine so they could talk about what they could do. And the reason that's important, George W. Bush has the largest highway in Ghana named after him because he's a born again humanitarian. And remember, for many of you, the same insults you were hurling at President Trump were those same insults, those same adjectives, those same adverbs, those same nouns. You were using those to label President Bush 20 years ago. And he set up a foundation, and according to on record, he's claiming to have tested more African women for breast and cervical cancer than any foundation that has made Africa their focus.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that the United States Agency for International Development died, deservingly so, this gives us the opportunity to have a project where we are invested in Africa's future at a time when from 2010 to 2038, the World Health Organization said 57 million people on Earth would perish by non communicable diseases. For those of you who aren't familiar with medicine, like us, but that's diabetes, that's strokes, that's cancer, that's heart attacks. They have now surpassed AIDS, cholera, and malaria as the number one killer of the human being. And all those diseases, our numbers are disproportionate to the rest of the planet. And Cuba now has a treatment for diabetes victims that prevents the amputation of limbs. So
Say
we
that
just
last
want
part
you,
again. Pause. Pause. You got to say
Cuba,
that fast.
Cuba now has a treatment for diabetes victims that prevents the amputation of limbs.
Okay.
Match that with their program to eradicate glaucoma called Operation Project Miracle with Venezuela, which has restored eyesight to thousands of people. And we would like the brother Stevie Wonder as a symbolic gesture to consider that treatment, just to make a strong statement at this historical moment.
Mm,
So these are, and then, of course, during the corona pandemic, they were the only nation in the Americas to create a vaccine institute, the Finlay Vaccine Institute, where they created 3 vaccinations and another one that dealt with nasal. And understanding that they're the only nation in the Americas where green medicine is part of the national health policy,
right. Because they didn't
you,
all put mitochondria
yeah,
in their
exactly.
right.
And I want to thank you and Sister Rhoda for pushing CSA to develop a memorandum of understanding with Cuba, which are the type of things that make this work that we're talking about possible. The vehicles we already have in place. And thank you so much for getting us on Ambassador David Comasong's radar. It's a
Right.
very valuable contact to have. He's always very not only supportive but encouraging
Definitely.
and inspiring.
Definitely.
So yeah, so just
Passionate.
looking at all this work, just looking at all this work. So I miss the road, to be honest, but when you're traveling like you're traveling, I feel represented. When
Okay.
Mukasa's traveling like he's
That,
traveling, I feel represented. Because for me,
it's
at
been
this
that
particular point,
all our lives. Like literally.
so I'm just feeling at this particular point, my role individually for this collective struggle is to develop the projects that are the most adequate follow-up to these assemblies that we're having because we have to make assemblies a weapon like they were before.
Right.
The
And
Fifth Pan African Congress is remembered, not that the other four or the other 7 or 8, the number 1 through 4, number 6, number 7, not that they weren't great, but we know 5 resulted in 15 years later, 35 nations in Africa being independent.
Correct.
We
Right.
know when the NAACP was created what that resulted in. People can say what they want. We know what the National Association of Colored Women, all these institutional vehicles, organizational formations, they come from assembling. A student conference at Shaw University created the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. This is our culture. We've never wasted time when we assemble.
Correct.
We don't allow intellectual showboating when we assemble.
Correct. Correct.
So even though that appears to be problematic a little bit, I would say to people who are a little bit discouraged, just let your history inspire you. It will be fine.
It will be fine.
Matter of fact, the enemy needs to have alternative conferences because we're working so hard and we are making breakthroughs. So they have to paint the picture that nothing is being done. Now, where we compromise, we'll always say not enough is being done because we know we can never do enough.
And that is true.
E-
That is true.
every contribution we make, we know when we go back and reflect, we go crazy. Um, we could have did this better. We could have done that better. So as long as we're not satisfied, we don't rest on our laurels, or we're not supposed to. So I see that whole, and this is why the other thing about Kwame Ture, to be at Howard University in this particular space, at a time where on their shuttle bus they take pride in having the most Peace Corps volunteers in the HBCU community. And we know the only difference between the Peace Corps and the CIA is the same difference between the White Citizens Council and the Ku Klux Klan.
Right.
So to
One
know that they are
that.
open,
Yeah.
yeah. So to know that they are openly recruiting that way. And after the George Floyd situation, when Bill Clinton took, y'all talk about white privilege, but you don't talk about white liberal latitude.
Mhm.
And when he took white liberal latitude and decided to insult Brother Kwame at John Lewis's funeral,
Yes.
we knew that what that meant was they were telling students in that HBCU space that John Lewis's approach to struggle was more advantageous for them than Kwame Ture's approach to struggle.
So they did the
So to
divide
have us
here. Right.
so to have a society on Howard's campus that brings us in within 2 weeks to have an Asada Shakur tribute, and then we follow up with this African children's tribute to Kwame, it lets us know that things are looking very promising in the immediate future.
All right.
And we'll continue to do what we do. We'll just get into these spaces when we can, and we'll make the most of our opportunities when we get them.
Right. Well, I just wanted to add a linkage to several things that you said in terms of, the types of gatherings that persons are having, the historiography, in terms of how there's more organizing happening. Many people may not know, and then all the different layers that mass emphasis, the various efforts that are being done. These things were being done while our beloved revolutionary Empress Queen Assata Shakur was still on this side of the
There
story.
you go.
And it was
Yes.
wonderful that we were doing this, and even on with her now moving into that ancestral transition and within her 40 days, right, for sure. I think it's powerful that we're continuing to keep this kind of work going because we have to protect those that protect our interests as ancestral ancient African people, right? So I want to just
Yes.
highlight what was happening today and will continue in about
And,
another 4
and
hours.
her daughter Kukuya was so thankful for what we were able to do.
Okay.
And just to, because you remember in the beginning, people were like, well, did you get the clearance from the family? Remember
Right.
they were saying that to
I
us?
was there, yeah,
And of
all
course, like we were going to tell people on the phone what our level of interaction with the family was.
the time. Right. So that they
And
our house, right. I said,
yeah, exactly.
right, right. That was
So just to know that we were able to do that. And of course, we had the opportunity before he transitioned to be advised by Bilal Sudi Ali.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. This was a very powerful
And when I
several years
yeah,
recently. This was a
and
powerful, it's right.
meeting, and when I met him in Selma, he had
Hmm.
heard me close out the educational segment of the conference. So he just comes up to me smiling. And I said, man, I've been looking for you. He was like, I'm not hard to find. So we talked outside the George Wallace Community College for like about, check the name out, like for about 2 hours.
Nice,
So
nice.
I used your term, actionable deliverables, right?
Yeah, there we
And
go.
I told him, I said, bro, what if I told you that a campaign could be launched in our sister's honor,
Hmm.
and you just have to advise from the background?
That's all we
And he
need.
smiled, and
Mhm.
he smiled and said, I said, well, I would say get to it. So
And we got to it.
I, no, and I told him, I said, you probably don't, you probably you have every reason to doubt us, sir.
Right.
So when we did it, and when he spoke at that press conference, remember that smile on his face?
It was wide. It was wide.
Boom.
It was
So that's what I'm saying. So when you have these type of experiences, I mean, you you're gonna have nothing but confidence and optimism moving forward. And like I said, I have a lot of fun in these circles. It's starting to scare me. Like I remember one time, this a minute ago, when we first got mass emphasis off the ground. I won't say the person's name, but no, I can because it's all love. We were on a platform with Marimba Ani at Sankofa Bookstore.
Mhm.
So she says, um, we have to have political education for children. Where is that being done? So people are pointing at me. I'm on the platform next to her, you understand? And she's like, what are y'all pointing at? They were like, oh, mama, the young man next to you, he's doing that. So we go on, and she says, but theater for children. The Black Arts Movement, the Harlem Renaissance, that's us. Where's that today? They pointing again. She says, what do y'all keep pointing at? She's like, the young guy there. So after the thing is over, she says, well, I didn't know. I said, well, you know now.
Right. And that's how that,
You know now.
and I think that that's a powerful way, because I wanted, again, our time has really come to an end. We've got a few more minutes, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
first and foremost appreciate you sharing and giving some context to what mass emphasis in all its iterations, from the educational piece, the creative arts, the cultural heritage, the preservation, and the economic drivers, so that you can keep this going. Yeah,
Yeah.
that you shared with us, and I want to highlight that something that's happening as we speak. It started
Mm.
yesterday. Well, today, and is moving into tomorrow, is the seventh annual Pan African Diaspora Conference that's being convened in Arusha, in Tanzania, as we speak. And so this morning
Uh,
at 2 o'clock our time, let's see, 1 o'clock Eastern time, to 9 o'clock Tanzanian time, I had the privilege to be able to be part of a platform that was speaking to the different programs, the projects that are in place to not only deal with reparations through the lens of the theoretical space, but what are the current actionable deliverables that are being implemented, with really good engagement and outcomes to address reparative
mm.
justice,
I
the
love it.
institution of artifacts. And it was powerful because on the panel, at least one that I had the joy and privilege of being on, it focused on the repatriation of not only human remains that were stolen by colonizers and their allies, but by the ancestral sacred treasures, and what people like to call
Mm.
artifacts, that we know that
Yeah.
belongings that actually stripped the sovereignty of many of our people in the African continent and other spaces. So
Wow.
just
Oh
want to
my God.
I just want to highlight that this is
It's funny. It's
very
funny you brought that up because one of the things I always show my students is the chapter in the World in Africa by Du Bois, written in 1946.
yeah,
The chapter, my favorite one, The Rape of Africa, where
right,
he chronicles the slaughtering of elephants.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I
And
think that
so,
that's important because
yeah.
this was about restitution, restorative justice, reparations, the right to return, decolonizing education, climate change,
Mm,
agriculture, real estate, and investment. But this is the part that I want to make sure I share with you, with this
okay.
partnership with the Sixth Region African Diaspora Alliance in Tanzania. in partnership with the Bandung Africa, that on Saturday they're going to be hosting a large body of young African on this Beyond Borders Youth Conference. I just like, again, I'm very grateful. I have to give my thanks and deep appreciation to Nana Abina James of the Sixth Region African Diaspora Alliance in Tanzania, who's also
Okay.
our on with boots on the ground in Tanzania, and definitely producing all kinds of actionable deliverables.
You got to connect us
It's
though.
good. Oh well, no, you already connected. You already know that. Yeah, that's why I'm saying
Hmm.
that this is something that
Okay.
is in process, and I know that these connections.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So even while you're being still, and even for me, being still is that I tend to stay in this hemisphere, but the work that we're doing is literally is just going global, and I just
Yeah.
desire for persons to just be aware. So if you want to get more information, or if you want to at least, they do have online options for this conference that's going to continue. Again, for us on this side, it's like between 1 and 2 in the morning
Yeah.
until about 7 in the morning. 7 in the morning
Well,
for us.
we've heard from people like you. We will follow up after it's over. That's the most
Exactly,
important thing.
exactly,
Because
exactly. And I thought
yeah.
it was just really
Because
powerful.
it's hard. People underestimate how difficult it is to really have a strategic meeting on the sidelines of these conferences.
Right,
It's
right,
not easy because people have their agendas. They have people that they want to see, especially if they're meeting you by accident. You're going there looking to meet certain people. So
right,
sometimes that's not the best scenario, but people realize after the fact when you follow up with them that you're serious about not only what you're serious about, but you have a genuine appreciation for what they bring to the table.
right. Well, I think it's important that I also highlight that our sister is an East African coordinator for the
Okay.
UNIA ACL RC 2020,
Oh,
in addition to a
okay.
long list, serving as the chairperson of the sixth region TZ,
Love
working
all
with
that.
the SRDC as an African lead facilitator, working with the Africa USA Chamber of Commerce, working with
Oh
the
wow.
African
Okay.
Diaspora 126 Plus, and,
So
working
it's
with
the
the,
inevitable. It's the
right,
inevitable that we'll get together and make the most of it
exactly,
when we get together. So yeah.
exactly. So
So
that's
thank you. So thank you so much for this opportunity
yeah. Well,
tonight. Thank you.
it's
It's
been
been a
a
blessing.
it's been a joy. It's been a privilege. And again, like I
Because
said,
people don't know how often like we communicate with each other. So
oh, for
the
sure
public
not
is getting the opportunity to just get a taste of our interaction on a regular basis.
on a regular
And
basis.
it's not only some of the most meaningful interaction I'm having at this particular historical moment, but it's some of the most meaningful interaction I've had in my 35 years of involvement. So thank you so
And we're
much for that.
grateful. Well,
Really
thank you for
appreciate
just being receptive and for always bringing truth as power, not just to
it.
power, but truth as power. And then the level of
Like that.
organization work that you do is just
Yeah.
it's stellar. So it helps. It's like iron sharpens iron. It's really a good.
Yes.
It's a good engagement, and so I'm very grateful in that regard.
I appreciate it. Now,
Right.
just where those of you in the Caribbean, we just know that we hope you're lucky to know what caliber of human resource you have in Dr. Chinzera. So
Yeah.
y'all take care. Long live the African child.
Long live the African child. And again, we really want
Yes.
to thank those listeners, viewers that have joined us on this podcast of Us Speaks, Building a New Legacy. That's part of the Crew Podcast programming that is
Hmm.
8 p.m. every day. I think that there's going to be some shifts as they move into the next season in 2026. So between now and the end of this year, there's going to be some other engaging broadcasts. We really do hope that persons will really tune in. I mean, we have a couple of other, I may have a bonus show here or there before December 31st. And I'm working out some of those dates because right this moment, I'm not remembering all of those dates, but I know that my regular pieces will be on December 4th and December 18th. And then there'll be some other bonus dates that I will be able to broadcast. Persons that want to get in touch can either email me at astspeaks, that's ASTSPEAKS at gmail.com, or you can just look for Chinzira Kahina, whether it's an Instagram or Facebook, I don't really use X for obvious reasons. And then you can also go to the YouTube page and just look for Us Speaks, ASTSPEAKS at Yahoo. At Yahoo, listen to me at YouTube, right? So that you'll be able to get some updates on some of the things that we're doing. And there's a lot more to share because there's so much that's going on. Even right here in St. Croix, we've got the Black Heritage Tree Project that's going to have a feature event at one of our largest baobab trees, and just having people share narratives and holding space and minimizing the erasure of our literature, of our narratives, of our history, of our culture, of our traditions in these spaces. So we have a lot that's going to be shared in the very near future. So with that, we say land is our foundation, spiritual harmony unifies us, and we know that you are part of that house of life that really brings truth as power in our practical work. What are the actionable deliverables that you'll get to speak about the next time we speak and reason? I'd like you to think about that. Remember to stay true to yourself. Remember, it's good to know yourself, respect yourself, and love yourself, and do something good for someone in your space, in your community, in your nation, and for humanity. Reparations, now. Repatriation, now. Restitution, now. Be free. Give thanks and have a blessed evening. And I look forward to the next time that you join us here on I Speaks, building a new legacy and a new generation. Give thanks. Good night.